Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Arrests in an alleged terrorist plot against Manhattan synagogues, violence at Israel's borders, Broadway stars step out for Jewish causes, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now on this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is all over the news this week, with recent developments challenging the status quo. On May 15th, a traditional day of Palestinian protest against the founding of Israel, a reported 14 Palestinians were killed by Israel Defense Forces troops as throngs of Palestinians approached borders shared with Israel, some attempting to cross and some throwing stones. May 15th is referred to in Palestinian circles as the Nakba, the Arabic word for catastrophe, referring to the founding of the State of Israel on that date in 1948. What's particularly notable about the demonstrations this year is not just the violence that ensued, but also where they were taking place, not only at borders shared with Palestinian territories, but also at borders shared with Syria and Lebanon, with this year being the first that Nakba demonstrations have taken place at those borders. And of course, all of this comes on the heels of two major events in the Middle East, the widespread protests in the Arab and Muslim worlds, and more recently, the Fatah-Hamas unity deal to govern the Palestinian territories. On the Fatah-Hamas deal, the world was delivered a message by Fatah leader Mahmoud Abbas in the form of a New York Times op-ed on May 16th, calling for the establishment of a Palestinian state. Abbas declares this September at the United Nations General Assembly, "We will request international recognition of the state of Palestine on the 1967 border and that our state be admitted as a full member of the United Nations." Many might be wondering how the United States will be handling these new developments, but a better question would be who will handle them. As a result of another piece of news this week, U.S. Mideast envoy George Mitchell, appointed 2 years ago by President Barack Obama, has resigned his position. He's being replaced by his deputy, David Hale. All of this comes on the eve of two major events this week: Thursday's speech by the president outlining his new Middle East strategy, and Friday's meeting between the president and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll be discussing those in next week's newscast. In a story of the security of Jews here in the United States, two men were arrested in New York last week for allegedly plotting to destroy a synagogue, kill Jews, and commit other violent acts in the city. Here's New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg last Thursday.
Yesterday, detectives from the NYPD arrested two men who said they wanted to destroy a major synagogue in Manhattan and then purchase several weapons and a hand grenade from an undercover officer. Fortunately, long before their aspirations could take hold, New York City police officers were watching them and were in a position to take them into custody before they could maim and murder innocent New Yorkers. We are concerned about lone wolves acting against New York City in the wake of the killing of bin Laden, and that's why the case before us today is so important.
New York City Police Commissioner Ray Kelly expanded on the details.
In addition to discussing the bombing of synagogues, quote, one after another, unquote, Farhani also expressed interest in bombing the Empire State Building. 7 months ago, New York City undercover officers encountered Farhani, who expressed interest in killing Jews. He also said, quote, we will blow up a synagogue in Manhattan and take out the entire building. On the same day, after Mamdouh said, quote, I hate Jews, Farhani replied, I want to kill them. Like the plotters in the Herald Square bomb plot, Farhani discussed growing a beard and payas to disguise himself as an Hasidic Jew. We were concerned that his purchase of the guns and a grenade was part of a plan to attack Jews in New York City. We decided to make the arrest at this time because of Farhani's interest in obtaining weapons and his expressed desire to construct increasingly powerful bombs.
In other crime news, in the news business, we say that 3 of anything suggests there's a trend, and the big trend these days seems to be dressing up like ultra-Orthodox Jews to commit crimes. We shared video a couple months ago of one such effort as part of a jewelry heist and insurance scam. You just heard New York City's police commissioner describing a similar plan for the alleged synagogue plotters. And a third example has popped up in Israel with ties to Scientology. According to a report in Israeli newspaper Yediot Achronot, criminals were hired by Israeli Scientology attorney Gur Finkelstein to bomb the Scientology center there, as Finkelstein had close connections with those who'd be contracted to build a replacement Scientology center. The same criminal gang was also supposedly planning to frame the other right wing in Israel, the political right wing, by bombing a mosque. At least 11 suspects have been arrested. Amid all of this, it might be difficult to remember that last week was Israel's celebration of Independence Day. Our Christian Needon didn't, though, and has this report from the Israeli consulate celebration in New York.
Israel's New York consulate celebrated the country's 63rd birthday last week by throwing a party at the Crowne Plaza in Midtown Manhattan, where there was music, food, and hundreds of guests celebrating Israeli independence. The Consul General welcomed his guests by putting the occasion in perspective.
When we look at history of nations, what's 63 years? It's a blink of a moment in historical terms. Yet, our nation and we today end the annual 10-day cycle that takes us from grief and devastation to independence to prosperity, that started with Holocaust Remembrance Day, went through the Memorial Day for the fallen Israeli soldiers and the victims of terrorism, and now today ends with a celebration of our success not only to survive, but to prosper and to make a difference.
Aharoni also trumpeted both the nation's growing population and its rising economic fortunes.
In 1948, a nation that was proud of having $6 million worth of export, which was mainly agricultural, is today a proud $84 billion exporter, mainly of high-tech. 40% of our export is high-tech. We went from 600,000 people back in 1948 to 7.8 million people today. "2010 was a great year for us. This was the year when Israel was admitted for the first time in its history into the OECD. Those of you who don't know, the OECD is the world's most luxurious elite club of economies. And today Israel is officially a developed nation rather than a developing nation.
To see more from the event, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. A different kind of Israel celebration featured Broadway stars this week, and Rebecca Honig-Friedman was there.
I had a dream about you or movement. It's gonna come true. JNFAICF.
Tova Feldshuh, Brad Oscar,
yes, Oscar is a Jewish name,
and other stars of Broadway took the stage at Alice Tully Hall this week for Broadway Sensation.
I'm the son of a gun, this is one of a kind.
A night of song and dance to celebrate Israel and benefit 3 organizations working for the growth of the Jewish state: the America-Israel Cultural Foundation, the Jewish National Fund, and the OR Movement. But for organizational leaders and Jewish community VIPs, from Israel's Consul General in New York, Ido Aharoni, to noted fashion designer Maggie Norris, the party got started earlier in the evening with a sushi buffet and open bar reception at the Empire Hotel.
It's a big celebration for idealism, Zionism, and the development of Israel.
And while there's nothing overtly Zionistic about Broadway-style song and dance numbers per se, according to the executive director of the America-Israel Cultural Foundation, or AICF, that's the point.
It's not what you see on CNN. This is really the young voice of Israel, and one where the arts often are representative in counter to what people feel strongly is very overtly Zionist.
For more on the Broadway sensation, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.